Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of Show to View with Mike G, the show of life, the show of Prince, the show of writing down your dreams, creating anything you possibly can, and Scotch whiskey. Tomorrow, June 1st, 2019, is officially Ardbeg Day, so it is my pleasure to bring you the first of two chats considering two of the greatest minds behind the Ardbeg brand. This first chat with Dr. Bill Lumsden is just delightful. He was recently in town talking about the new Glenmorangie Allta, which we talk about here in the interview, a very lovely Scotch, and it's one of those intrepid, bold projects that I think Dr. Bill really gets proud of. He pats himself on the back for being the innovator and the first to do these things, and you know what? He damn well deserves it. So the first of two chats releasing today. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation with Dr. Bill Lumsden. Are you maybe the Prince of Scotch?
That always appealed to me, the fact that on the albums it was written, composed, produced, arranged and performed by Prince, and I thought I liked that.
Yeah.
And certainly within the Glenmorangie company, I'm very territorial. I'm like a tomcat, and I do not like other people interfering in what I do. So from that perspective,
it's funny that you learned how to play drums just so someone else didn't do it. That's a really interesting way. All these different flavors. I mean, you have this brilliant billboard behind you, Quinto Rubin, the original Lasanta and stuff. Really worldly flavors. You keep doing new things and you keep innovating. And I'm wondering where you get the inspiration for this.
Well, it comes from all sorts of different areas. And this is going to sound ever so slightly sad, Mike, but I've got a little book I keep. And I usually keep it beside my bed because I have very vivid dreams every day. And sometimes I go back and review them and it sparks off an idea. But sometimes it can be something somebody said. Like you could, for example, tell me about a new flavour you're trying to introduce to your gin, and that might make me think, wonder if I can do something like that.
Really?
And you know, as a wine lover, obviously I've had a lot of inspiration from using different types of wine casks, so there is no one simple answer to that.
Yeah, so it comes from the world itself.
Yep.
You appreciate different places? Traveling?
Oh, very much. I love travelling and seeing different things, and you know, it's not always safe to do what I do depending on where I am.
Yeah.
But I love just wandering. If I'm in a new city, just wandering about. And I'll walk for miles and miles. I know I'll walk 15, 20 miles a day sometimes.
Really?
Just seeing things.
Were you ever a painter? Was there ever a visual medium for you?
No, unfortunately, that is one branch of the arts that I totally suck at.
Well, you can paint with your palette, in a sense, right? You know, I was asking too, a lot of the people I talked to are in the mezcal industry and people that have started this thing, because it's a beautiful spirit as well. And I ask about colors when you taste things. Somehow blue is something with real fresh, crisp, like eau de vie that come to mind. But if you think about, let's say, Lasanta or even the Allta, what kind of colors come to mind when you're tasting it?
Well, certainly in terms of Lasanta, it's much more autumnal colours, fall colours. So deep reds and rust colour and tobacco colour and things like that.
Yeah.
Whereas Allta is very crisp. So to me, it's yellows and greens.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you ask me that because I absolutely do envisage flavours in terms of colours.
It's kind of like a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything, how about a green colour? I think vegetal and kind of crisp and grassy. But
green to me is very, very fresh and maybe verging on being tropical rather than vegetal.
Interesting. Okay. Kind of like an unripe mango. Something like that.
Unripe mango, unripe bananas,
papaya,
pears, things like that.
Very interesting.
And green also, for what this is worth, is my favourite colour. I've always loved green. which sits rather uneasily for a Glasgow Rangers supporter, because Rangers are blue and Celtic, the deadly rivals, are green.
Well, it's funny too. I think about Islay, and I've not yet had the pleasure to go, but everything I've seen about and experienced from it is like this day, right here.
Pretty normal for Scotland.
So this feels pretty good. You're in Austin, but it feels just like home.
I mean, basically the weather doesn't faze me.
Yeah.
Because, we get some nice weather in Scotland and we get a lot of rotten weather, so you just get on with it,
Good whiskey, bad whiskey alike as well, right? So this story, I think about, there's lots that has been written about your accolades as a distiller and as a blender and all these things. But, I wanted to dig a little bit deeper. It looks like in 75 is when you enter uni in Glasgow, the University of Glasgow, and then there's this path of pure science. But before that, were you maybe considering some other realms, maybe music, maybe biology?
I have to say that in terms of my studies at school, I was always much more orientated towards science.
Yeah.
Although I've always had a very vivid imagination, so certain elements of the arts in terms of writing stories and things always appealed to me. And, I've got a ridiculously vivid imagination. And one of my best friends at school, Ian Mackenzie, him and I had great fun inventing stories and situations. And our favourite phrase was, imagine if. And then we'd wax lyrical about it.
Oh, no kidding.
So that's possibly the other angle I would have gone down. But the other thing that really deeply interested me as I got a little bit older was fabric, cloth, weaving of
textiles?
cloth. Yeah. And,
really?
Scotland has such a rich history of that, and I love all the different colours that can be put into it, the different feeling of the tweed, whether it's Harris tweed or cashmere or things like that. But, essentially, science was where it was at.
Did you ever have, or now have, a leisure suit made out of velvet? I aspire. My dad just retired.
Right.
He's going to get one.
I did at one stage when I was a very young boy have a pair of chocolate brown velvet bell-bottomed trousers. But after all, my friends kicked the absolute shit out of me for wearing them. I'm joking here. So no, I've not yet had such a thing. I've got many, many suits. I'm a complete shopaholic.
Yeah. It's a nice jacket you have now.
Thank you.
You're 38 wide, 40 wide?
42.
42, okay.
Yep.
At 6'1". I mean, I'll be lucky if I can fit into like a 38 short,
I am the most common size, which is good in some respects, but as a Scottish person who's a bargain hunter, you don't find much in the sale in my common size.
Does the science aspect, is that come from your parents or the family? Or
Not at all. I really don't quite know where it came from, but I always had a natural bent towards it. And from when I was a little boy, I had a microscope and I used to dissect flies and spiders and things and look at it down there. I had very early chemistry sets. Myself and a few of my friends used to purloin chemicals from the chemistry lab at school and try and make our own explosives and things like that.
Do you remember the first time you spilled hydrochloric acid on your hand? I remember that. And you never do it again. It's then sulfuric acid. It hurts more that time, right?
Then eventually you move up the scale to phosphoric.
So you were... This is the thing that I'm beginning to see, that I can... I feel expressed via the bottles of Glenmorangie, right? You're a creative guy, so no one's going to tell you that something can't be done. Kind of what if, or why not do it? But at the same time, you're able to analyze it at probably a molecular level and say, this is why this could work too. So you study at the University of Glasgow, you're doing kind of stuff with the yeast and microbiology and stuff like that. And when you got done, what do you do with such a background?
Okay, so by the time I got to the end of my studies, I could have done one of three things, and I could have moved into a more sort of medical biochemical type of thing, or I could have gone into applied and industry in terms of some field of biotechnology, which also includes brewing and distilling.
Sure.
Or I could have continued my studies and eventually with the aim of becoming a lecturer at university. But honestly, it was my discovery of single malt Scotch whiskey and my love of that made me think, right, this is it. This is destiny calling. So that's how it happened.
So up until I've heard, this is funny too, is that there's actually kind of a trail or an audit trail of your first experiences with scotches, given your great experience. I heard one was 1984.
1984 was the
right?
first time I tasted single malt Scotch.
Yeah.
And I had tasted blended Scotch on a few occasions, and it never quite worked with me.
Yeah.
But this first time in Edinburgh, when I was studying of Glenmorangie 10-year-old, and then Balvenie, and then a few others, that really got me into the
It
category.
made sense. Roughly how old were you in 84?
I was 24.
20, perfect age
Right.
then to find it. Because you're just smart enough. You have had all the bad... Did you have the bad drinking phase?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we all
Yeah.
kind of do, right?
You know, my first experience of Scotch ended not just in tears, but also in bloodshed. So it was a very bad experience indeed. But funnily enough, my dad always said to me, he said, "Billy, you will come to like whiskey." He said, "I'm not going to push you into it, but there will come a stage where you will like it and appreciate it." And the other thing is you'll like Guinness as well.
Yeah.
So he introduced me sort of to the idea of liking whiskey, and he actually physically introduced me to my first pint of Guinness, which I hated, by the way.
Yeah.
But, you know, I persevered with it, and by the 12th pint, guess what?
It goes down just like mother's milk, they say, right? So another 2 to 4 years, because this is the thing, you know, when you made this decision to move into the whiskey realm, had you already finished the PhD work?
No, my PhD was from 83 to 86, and by then I'd very much decided that the whiskey industry was where my destiny lay.
Yeah.
And a wonderful, charismatic lecturer at Heriot-Watt University, Dr. Jeff Palmer, now Professor Sir Jeff Palmer, as he is. And he was a West Indian gentleman, and he got a knighthood for his work on race relations with the Metropolitan Police in the UK, believe it or not. But Jeff took me under his wing and introduced me to lots of individuals working in the whiskey industry.
Yeah.
Made sure I always went along to the guest lecture evenings. And so I applied for and got a job as a research scientist with the Distillers Company Limited, DCL, Diageo as they are now. So and I actually got my job pretty much at the first attempt, which, you know, was just a bit of luck more than anything.
Did you know someone over there?
I knew a couple of people there,
Yeah.
but they just happened to be looking for someone with my background at the time. So I left the university a few months earlier than I was intending, and it then took another 2 years to write my PhD thesis up, which wasn't ideal, but there was no way I was going to turn down the opportunity of this job with the DCL.
And and then I always think about going into the PhD work. It's really a good point. There is a dichotomy because you could be teaching right now, too, right? Yeah. Following maybe in the footsteps of your, but whiskey holds you aside. What did the PhD end up being in?
The PhD was, the official title was The Effects of Carbon Dioxide Pressure on the Cell Division Cycle of Budding and Fission Yeasts. Bit of a mouthful. I was basically looking at the way yeast grew and divided with different fermentation conditions in it. And, one of the things one of the lecturers said to me, and I often say to people that, don't get too hung up on the actual subject you're studying for your PhD.
Right.
Just use it as an experience to learn how to work on your own and plan laboratory work and write up results. That's the main thing about a PhD.
Right, maybe developing a method, but self-proclaimed, you are not scatterbrained because you're very orderly, but these ideas are maybe erratic at times.
Oh no, I'm very, very scatterbrained.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of keeps you in line? Now, I guess one of the things is the process of whiskey is step 1, 2. But
if I'm absolutely honest about it, when my back is against the wall, I know I have to deliver.
Yeah.
And I'm maybe going to use some naughty language here.
Unsavory.
Yeah, but I often say to myself when I'm in real high pressure situations of presenting to the board of Moet Hennessy for example, I always say to myself, Billy boy, if you do not perform here, you're fucking dead.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. So I'm a little bit disorganized. I've got a good team round about me, but when it comes to having to deliver, we always deliver. I don't like disappointing people.
Yeah. When it comes to delivering on the road, you've got a captive audience there hinging on your every word. Do you like that component of it too, getting out of the lab And
I mean, I love meeting with consumers and trade, and believe it or not, it really does help me think about new products.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I've always had this view that it doesn't matter how much I love the whiskies I make. If no one else loves them, then what's the point?
That's a great point.
So it's good to get feedback. But yeah, I like doing things like that. It sometimes is high pressure, and I am my own biggest critic.
Yeah.
I was brought up as a Lutheran, but I'm a closet Roman Catholic because I flail the skin off my back on a
Super guilty all the time, right?
daily basis. I am not worthy.
But has your humility ever been tested, given the accolades that you've received, the people holding you in such high regard?
I would honestly like to say not, Mike, and I think anyone who knows me knows that I am quite a humble guy.
Yeah.
I had my annual performance appraisal review with our new chief exec last week, and I was kind of talking about 2018 as not being a good year. And it
Wait,
was
for you or for the company?
For me, it was a tough year. My father died, and there was various things like that happened. But Tom, the new boss, said, "Well, you did pretty okay." And he said, "What about you winning Master Distiller of the Year for the second time in this competition?" And I said, "Yeah, nice."
Don't even give it a second thought, do you?
Yeah.
I've had, one of my friends for a long time, he was a screenwriter, and he suffered through writing, living on the floor, trying to sell a script and all of this. And one year, he finally broke out at Sundance. He had 2 movies debuting at Sundance. And finally, he kind of came into his own and received some kind of acknowledgement finally. But knowing that you have these awards and knowing that you're releasing these amazing whiskeys, does it ever feel like you've got to keep that high and keep that level of performance?
I mean, you're only as good as your last hit record, as they say. And in some respects, having a lot of success like that actually builds more pressure on you, because there is an expectation you're just going to win these things all the time and win awards. And it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah. So is that another source of pressure then too?
Yeah, I would say
Where's
so.
Where's the hits, Bill? Where's the next number one, right?
Yeah, but I'm very single-minded in what I'm doing, and this is going to sound very strange to try and describe it, but when I'm judging my whiskies and I'm making things, it's almost like I'm not thinking about it. I just know. You get
intuition.
You're feeling it more than you're actually rationally thinking it.
That's a true artistic.
And that's what I'm trying to install in Brendan, my right-hand man,
wonderful.
who I think maybe you met. That I can't write a manual for Brendan to say you do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
You just have to live the brand and get used to it. And when I'm approving samples in the lab, I just know instantly if it's right or if it's wrong.
Yeah.
And I can't actually explain how that's come about other than experience and intuition.
It's like romance.
Yeah.
It is compatibility. And it doesn't have to be a specific whiskey, but are you ever caught in a place in the middle where something's bad? That's easy, right? Something's good. Oh shit, this is good. But where it's so perplexing and maybe cerebral that it even takes you aback.
I mean, in terms of being caught in the middle, that you said there, I don't know what that word means. There is no middle ground in the world of Billy Lumsden. It's all or nothing, and I'm not interested in anything else.
That's amazing.
So it doesn't affect me that way. But the second part of the question, Mike, what was that?
It's just that if I think you've answered it, because if you're committing to it, either it's gone or it's in, right? There is no middle ground. So that's the true testament again to your prince-like nature. You're gonna wear pants without ass cheeks on them, So I think that's a really bold thing. And do you learn that kind of bravery or lack of fear, or is it just
I think it just comes with experience. And having worked in the industry for more than 30 years, I kind of know what I'm doing now. So again, it's not something I sit down and analyze. And there's no question I will never be CEO of the company. I'm far too disorganized and far too much of a dreamer for that.
Yeah.
But I think the kind of personality I have is right for the job I do just now.
I think so, because you're an incubator of ideas, Has there ever been something with technology or with resources that you had that actually limited or prevented you from doing something that you wanted to do?
I think the thing that has maybe prevented me from doing some things is the very strict set of laws governing the Scotch whisky industry, which incidentally are very good for our industry because they provide a degree of integrity and authenticity. So I'm very much in favour of them. But sometimes I'm thinking, God, I'd really like to try that.
Right.
Actually, I couldn't call it Glenmorangie. I couldn't call it, but I'm actually now in my later years actually trying these things just to see what happens.
What's the worst that can happen now, you know?
You know, the worst that can happen is that you've got a batch of stuff that has to go down the drain.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that often. But again, from trying these things on a limited scale, it might just spur a thought of how you can do it legally, and that's happened a few times.
It forces you, when your back's against the wall, to innovate.
Yeah.
You know? I think that pressure, for some people, they don't want that. But I almost feel like you thrive on it.
I think it helps me at the end of the day. And, you know, I don't necessarily plan long term for things. And when it comes towards the deadline, suddenly I think, shit, right, I'm going to get stuck in about this.
Yeah. It's a very, very impromptu kind of extemporaneous way to live, which means you pretty whimsical person when it comes up to getting up. You talk about walking all over the world. Yeah. I think it's a really element. It's an element of Glenmorangie, right? Yeah. It is kind of you. So then, you know, this whole story is a 95 or 98 in which you joined the Glenmorangie.
I joined Glenmorangie 95, right at the beginning of 95.
And you can't talk about, you know, you've got these two kids, multiple bottles, but in terms of the concepts and the flavors, it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr.
Oh yeah, they're so different, and you know, there's not a lot of crossover.
Right.
In terms of making whiskies for Glenmorangie and Ardbeg. But again, I love that. And the other thing which I think has helped me in some respects, hindered me in others, is I've got an astonishingly low boredom threshold. And that helps me want to explore and try new things.
Yeah.
And you know, not everything I try is good. I end up in some sticky situations. And again, my friend Ian Mackenzie and I, even if we'd had a really bad experience where we got beaten up or arrested or something, we would look back on it as a positive because it was something different.
Yeah. Where did you become so optimistic and bright? Like, you know?
I've just always had this degree of optimism about me, and I like to think I'm an inherently happy person.
It seems,
and again, you've got me going off at a little tangent here, but one of my early romances ended because the girl got fed up with me lying on the floor of her bedroom in fits of laughter over something totally stupid. But I do get amused very easily by the slightest things.
Well, at least it's the joie de vivre, right? Like just having a lust for life. I think that's a really important thing. So, you know, I've read about the sales increases and all of this and kind of what you've built with these two amazing distilleries. And every year, you know, there's a special release of Glenmorangie, there's a special release of Ardbeg, which can't wait to have you talk about it at some point here in the near future. You've got a great team, you know. But so this year, we've got the 10th edition of Glenmorangie Private Selection of Private Casks.
Private Edition.
Private Edition. Yeah. So 10, I mean, you know, that's the big one.
Yeah.
The 10th anniversary in a sense. And you bring something that takes you back to the roots, which is back to that yeast, back to the lab.
And it's also arguably the most innovative of the 10 of them. And it's something I've been working on for years and years. And if I'm honest about it, the reason it was released now was that I was getting fed up reading so many other distilleries who are going to do something that's never been done before, use wild yeast. And I thought, yes, it has. I did it many years ago. So I think it's a very fitting product for the 10th anniversary release. And again, when myself and the former marketing director kind of dreamt this concept up all these years ago, I honestly didn't think it would have such longevity.
Really? Just like a flash, pub talk.
Yeah. I mean, I thought we'd have a few expressions and I would continue to innovate, but to actually have this rather formal vehicle for releasing the results of the innovation has been great. And I'm highly delighted to see that the kind of idea is now being copied by other distillers. And, you know, William Grant's with their Glenfiddich series have a nice, some interesting ideas. They're quite different from mine, but interesting to see that. And I'd like to think that we've maybe sort of spurred that on in people.
It's height of innovation. You've inspired them. They've inspired you. Being such a self-sufficient person intellectually and with your abilities blending, do you ever want to collaborate with other people?
Yeah, I would like to do that, but it's not always easy to do.
Yeah.
But, you know, my industry peer group, which includes such luminaries as Richard Patterson and David Stewart and Ian McMillan and Jim Beveridge, we meet quite often in terms of on committees and judging and competitions.
Yeah.
And while we don't actually have a direct collaboration, because from a brand perspective that might be tricky, you know, we do help each other out and we give each other ideas.
I think that's good. It's a brain trust.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I'm trying to think, if, you know, because I always use the Beatles as an example every time, especially as we're talking 10 things that are completely different, having to reinvent yourself, having to innovate with technology that's available at the time, all this stuff. I mean, you kind of read like a John Lennon to me. Is that good? Is that fair?
I think of the four,
Yeah.
he would definitely be the one. He's the one that most inspired me.
Yeah, okay.
And I've always felt he really was the power behind
Absolutely. The
the
guts,
Beatles.
the balls.
Yeah,
Serious.
and he did things differently. I mean, some of the things he didn't sit easily with a lot of people.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But, you know, I admire him for his boldness and his single-mindedness.
Yeah. Well, that's his dedication to his craft.
Yeah.
And to his ego, which I think is a very important thing to feed that too.
Yeah.
So Glenmorangie 10, because, you know, we've got these beautiful glasses in front of us. When was the 10 initially introduced?
The Glenmorangie original.
Yeah. Or the original, excuse me,
honestly, I can't answer that question. And for as long as I've known the Glenmorangie brand, it's been bottled as a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing we're going back to either the late 50s or the early 60s. And before that, the vast majority of Scotch malt whiskey went into blends. It just wasn't really popular as a drink single malt. And in the 1960s, a number of brands, primarily Glenfiddich, Glenlivet, and then Glenmorangie, sort of reinvigorated the category. So I think it goes back to then. Now, we renamed it the original in 2007 when we relaunched the brand. And I slightly tweaked the recipe for it. I didn't change it that much, but I honestly tried to bring it back to my first memory on that magical night in 1984 when I tasted the 10-year-old. I just felt it was a little bit more rounded and more full-bodied, so that's what I tried to take it back to.
You know, the crispness and the clarity of Glenmorangie is something I've always appreciated. It actually lacks the distortion and ruggedness of John Lennon.
Yeah.
It's actually very McCartney-esque. A very, very beautiful melody.
Yeah.
And so 10, what are some things musically you think about when you try the original?
Musically, when I think of Glenmorangie original, it probably makes me think of kind of light-hearted, almost bubblegum pop.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I did an interview once in the UK, quite a few years ago, and the interviewer asked me a number of rather obscure questions. What's your favourite car? Which, of course, was the Porsche 917 Can-Am car. Of course it was. It's everyone's favourite car. And then they asked me what my favourite song was. And that's a very difficult question to answer. But I eventually plumped for E = MC squared by Big Audio Dynamite.
Oh my
if you know
gosh.
that song. Because it's a bonkers song. It's
Big
a
Audio
mad
Dynamite's
song.
a crazy song.
And it was just such an uplifting, feel-good song. So that sort of music is what I think about in original. But then if I'm thinking of something like La Santa, it's a lot more like louche jazz music,
Sultry.
Something like that.
Yes. Oh yeah, I'm trying to think who has that just very supple, deep voice, you know. But that is, you're right. Elvis did that in some of the ballads for sure. All right, so the original, you think it's Big Audio Dynamite?
Yeah, it's just,
I like that. That's
I think it's just the pure, perfect expression of Glenmorangie, and I liked what you touched on there about that crisp cleanliness.
Yeah.
If anything, goes wrong in the production process, if you have infection, if you have mustiness, anything like that, ruthlessly exposed in this whiskey.
Very good point.
And while the majority of my accolades are for some of the experimental ones, I put at least as much work into maintaining the quality of original as I do anything else.
Because it is so... everything is visible.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's really... It's under HD camera.
Yeah. That's what it's like.
Yeah.
So, we've got a glass of it here, and it's clean, and it's fresh, it's floral, it's salving. I just... This is a word which is not normally associated with single malt Scotch, but the word I would use for that is delicious. It's just a delicious flavour profile, in the same way that a ripe mango is delicious. There's nothing else like it.
Luscious,
that's it.
And it's funny too, because I think a question I would ask you if I didn't know, now I know better, but it is, which of these whiskeys best represents you? And then that's a foolish question, because whatever record you write is you, but they're all completely different. And this is 43 ABV?
This is 43,
Yeah, so it's very, very sippable, and this is something, you can find this all around the world.
And it's one of these things that Glenmorangie falls into this category that I think our friends at Glenfiddich and Glenlivet also fall into, that our whiskies are sometimes looked at as being mainstream. But they're popular for a reason, because they're actually quite good, I would say.
I mean, you can go anywhere in the world and you can count on it being good.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say this, and this is not an insult, but it's easy drinking.
Yeah.
It really, really is.
That's what I love about it. And almost certainly, had I started off my drinking with another, say an Islay whiskey, I might not be sitting here today. It might have had a completely different effect on me.
Sure.
And the first Islay whiskey I tried was Lagavulin, which was a 12-year-old at that time, and I was horrified with the taste. Absolutely horrified.
You
like it now.
Yeah, I was going to say you bound to grow a little warmer to it. But I figured, you know what, like, Ardbeg would be you with a beard.
Yeah.
A big, chunky, gray beard, right? That's kind of, I think, the duality between Glenmorangie and...
I actually did grow a beard about 4 or 5 years ago, and I've still got a picture of me with it, but it came in grey, and I thought, it's going. It's going.
I can't, this white stuff here? It's driving me nuts, but I don't want to shave it because I don't want to look like it's
mine was a lot greyer than yours.
Oh,
it was grey all over.
Yeah. Does it
Which
match?
Is strange, because my head's still relatively dark.
Exactly. That's the thing. Someday, aging is an interesting concept in itself. So you're here in Austin, Texas for the 7 Gram Whiskey Society, which we've had the likes of Dan's done a beautiful class, animated, a wonderful presenter, and I can't wait to see what you're going to bring to the table too. So inquisitive, and you've sipped this and touched it. So let's sip the Allta and talk about your latest 10th installment, most innovative too.
Yeah, I would say so. So the inspiration for Allta was twofold. Firstly, the fact that I did my PhD in yeast physiology, and the fact that yeast is really just a bit of a commodity in the whiskey industry.
Interesting.
Everyone's using the same thing. They're just looking for alcohol from it.
Okay.
And that I find that very painful, because of course it's responsible for creating not just the alcohol, but all these wonderful flavors.
Yeah.
But excuse me, the second thing which really spurred me on was the late great Michael Jackson. Now, not the pop star, of whom I was also a big fan, but the whiskey and beer writer. And in Michael's first World Guide to Whiskey, he's got a little throwaway mention about Glenmorangie having its own house yeast.
Oh, really?
And I thought, really? And I quizzed Michael about that, because I met him many times, and I could find no evidence of that whatsoever. So I thought, right, okay, I'm going to ensure that we do have our own house yeast. So that's where it started from. And my initial idea was simply to open the washbacks after the mash, leave it open to the atmosphere, and see what happens.
Yeah, right.
But I had a pretty good idea that the results might not be as delicious as the rest of the whiskies, and I'm thinking of Belgian lambic beers here. So I thought, right, where will I find an indigenous yeast in the local area? And to be honest, I could have swabbed just about anything, but we grow our own barley in the fields adjacent to the distillery.
Yeah.
And I know as an ex-maltster and barley buyer that the ears of ripening barley are hoaching with bugs. So I took some ears of the green barley, I wrapped it up, I sent it down to Lallemande, our yeast, one of our yeast suppliers, and they swabbed the ears of barley on agar plates. And guess what? They found all sorts of monsters growing up. And they isolated a number of wild yeast varieties. And eventually we settled on one which we believed would have fermentative capacity.
So that even before you use it in the mash.
Oh, yeah.
So you picked them. Okay.
This is way back in
Brave
the day.
New World kind of stuff.
and we liaised back and forth, and eventually we found one. And it was a subspecies of Saccharomyces.
Okay.
So we named it Saccharomyces diamath. Diamath, Gaelic phrase meaning God is good.
Okay.
Because that's what the ancient Egyptians used to say when they produced alcohol. They didn't know what was producing it. But
just came from above.
So eventually they cultured it up into an industrial quantity, enough for me to have 1 week's worth of production. And the most beautiful part of the whole story, and it's pure coincidence, is that by the time I had my batch of yeast to use, the malt from the very same barley it was swabbed from was ready and came into the distillery. So the circle was squared, so to speak.
Crazy.
And like I say, it just could not have worked out better. So God is good.
Man, and circular, isn't he?
Right. So we got lower alcohol yields, which I have to say was music to my ears, because I thought this is a different beastie.
Yeah.
So
maybe you wouldn't have even got anything, right?
I would have. Yeah. That was a possibility,
Sure.
but. We'd done so many laboratory trials with it that we knew that it could ferment. And I produced a week's worth of spirit. The new make spirit was noticeably different from the classic Glenmorangie spirit.
Yeah.
And that then left me with a little bit of a dilemma, because I thought if I put it into very active wood, it's highly likely that the difference, which was not huge, but the difference in flavour would be masked. So I actually used third fill casks for this, which I don't normally do.
Right.
And just to allow the biggest
Raw
amount
material
of difference to shine through. So this is it. This is Glenmorangie Allta.
Cheers.
So, and we do have little pipettes.
This is 50 something. What?
51.2.
I find that you have not been too prescriptive, which is nice.
Yeah.
Some people are prescriptive, like you need to drink this way and that, but you're very open to how to drink it.
I think people drink it however they like.
Because
to
51
do it.
is a nice sweet spot, you know.
But that's I tasted it at all sorts of different strengths, and I knew that normally they're 46 the private edition, but I knew I wanted to increase it a little bit just to celebrate the 10th anniversary.
Sure.
And at 51.2 it seemed to have the sweet spot.
Man.
So it's much more earthy,
Yeah.
a little bit more grainy, hints of baking bread, different
get a little
floral
like buttered
notes.
bread kind of thing.
And if you go back to the original, it's that lovely candy sweetness. It's not the same in the Allta.
No, right. Kind of like a scone.
Oh, and once you taste it, it's got that real crunchy, crispy bite to it, but it still has a smoothness. There's more pepper on the palate because of the higher alcohol level. And I think it's still distinctively Glenmorangie, but...
So I'm making this weird face and hold my finger up. Banana pudding.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Because there's this very cool kind of fatty thing going on with elements of banana and vanilla, right?
Ooh. There's a little bit of vanilla, but it's much less pronounced than in the original, which again you would expect from third fill casks.
I mean, that's a stunner.
So I felt it was different enough to justify bottling it. And all of the new kids on the block are talking about owning innovation and doing their own wild yeast. And I thought, right, I'm going to bottle this. I did this ages ago, so that's why we launched it when we did.
How many? So I hear this is pretty limited because there's only a week of production.
About 50,000 bottles globally.
Okay.
Yeah.
50. I mean, in a Glenmorangie at 51 plus. I mean,
it's less than 1% of the total volume of the brand we'll sell this year. So it is limited, and it will sell out.
Oh, for sure. There's a cool thing, like, you know, people say reverse nasal. I don't want to intellectualize it, but that stuff that's left on your tongue, that vapor of flavor, this is really pleasant too, and it gets almost like cooked down consomme, like a very kind of salty umami thing. So you're really packing a 3-punch: brightness, the fat, and then this savor stuff. It's really beautiful.
I mean, I have to say, while I know yeast and I know whiskey, I was very open-minded as to how this would turn out.
Yeah. So tonight we're going to finally, I think this is the first mass tasting in Austin of the Allta. And so what kinds of things do you want people to know where it came from, the story?
Yeah, I want them to know all about the story and the little anecdotal twists and turns that happened in there, what else I learned along the way, which may lead to other new products.
Sure.
And I've already hinted at one of them when I talked about a particular style of beer.
Yeah, oh yeah. So you can go, I think that's right around the 26-minute mark.
Okay, right.
Well, so I get 2 questions left for you.
Right.
And I ask this of everybody, and I'll be a little more specific with you. So you're anywhere in the world sipping the Allta, and you can have a conversation and a drink with any artist, living or deceased. Who might you like just to sit there and wax poetic with?
But I think one of the people I would like to do that with, and it's a gentleman I actually worked with once, and I never really got as close to him as I would have liked. It's a chef called Pierre Gagnère, and he's got 3 Michelin stars in his restaurant in Paris, and he uses really crazy experimental cooking.
Yeah.
And I never really got a chance to speak to him about what inspired him. So I think he would appreciate that. So that would probably be my answer.
Very, very culinary forward.
Yeah.
This whiskey is too.
You know, in terms of other artists, although the gentleman didn't actually drink, of course, I would dearly have loved to have met Prince. I saw him live a few times.
Oh, yeah.
But I didn't get close to meeting him.
Man, yeah, it would be lovely. You could probably just let him talk for a while you sip a few yourself. You mentioned, this is the last question, you mentioned having this journal where you script things. You, what's the word? You juxtapose ideas inspired by many different things. Do you see this journal in some form ever becoming fiction or an actual book at some point?
It would be
musings.
It'd be very difficult to take the rambling, incoherent musings of myself and put it into something structured.
Yeah.
But you never know, Michael. You never know. I jealously guard it. I don't let anyone see it.
Oh, you don't see it?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's very personal to me.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just wouldn't understand it at all.
Has anyone seen it ever?
One member of my team's seen it, and my wife has seen it, but
Yeah.
she's quite dismissive and skeptical of it, and that's fine. That's fine. You know.
Keeps it more of an icon and an enigma than it ever was.
And you know, this is going to sound totally ridiculous, but I had a very deep sleep. I don't sleep well normally because there's too much going on in my head.
Yeah.
But I had a very deep sleep one night last week in Scotland, and I had 2 incredibly vivid dreams, and one of them was that I was outside my old school, and we all had like parachutes, and we were allowing the wind to catch us, and we were taking off and we were flying.
Yeah.
And the second one was that I'd created this magical liquid, a fruit-based liquid.
Sure.
And as the liquid sat in the jar and aged, it developed a solid crust at the top, which we were taking off and eating. And from these 2 ideas, I'm going to make a whiskey. I don't know what it'll be yet. But
my mind is blown because I already was starting to think of flavors. You do think about parachutes and flying. This is how true artists make things. Some intensely deranged ideas. Well, it's been brilliant chatting with you and sipping the Scotch, and I can't wait to see how the presentation goes tonight. And your team here, Brendan's amazing dude, Dan's a great dude, Renee. So I appreciate you taking the time out, and I hope to catch you in Isla
it's my
soon.
pleasure, and thank you for making it such an interesting interview.
Well, I appreciate that.
Right.
I'm always trying to never keep people off guard, right? Thank you. Well, there we have it. Again, Ardbeg Day, June 1st, 2019, with the master distiller, the creative mastermind himself, of Ardbeg and Glenmorangie Marks, Mr. Dr. Bill Lumsden. What a pleasure to get to sit down and chat with him. You know, a lot of people consider him a legend in the industry. He's done so many things in the world of Islay Scotch, but he's a good dude. He's just fun to talk to. You know, as someone, we were going off mic and things really got interesting, and you kind of pick his brain about the other stuff he's really into: art, music, movies, these kinds of things. So a real Renaissance man and a guy you want to drink with. Thanks everybody at LVMH for coordinating such a lovely interview, and thank you, Dr. Bill, for taking the time out. So thanks everybody for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter how much music you think Christine has that also is in Halloween 3, John Carpenter perhaps stealing stuff from himself, or if you're saying, I can't wait to drink some brilliant scotch tomorrow, please keep dancing.